And all right. Welcome back to another edition of the Other League Pod. I think this is episode 5. And we got the original host back again for 2 weeks in a row, which doesn't happen often. So, Snai, how's it going? How the football week go for you? I know we're shooting this on a Saturday night, so I feel like it's been ages since week 6 happened, but yeah, we'll kind of look back and refresh our memory a little bit here.
Yeah, I mean, it's good, man. I'm always good to be on with you. Yeah, it's so crazy by the time we get to Saturday. Looking back at the last week feels like a lifetime ago. I think like once you start getting practice reports on Wednesday and Thursday, like the NFL schedule just turns over so quickly. And the past week is just so far already in the rear views. But I mean, we had, you know, I think a lot of as we kind of get further into the season, we look at each week, and each week obviously gets more and more important. The more we move, we're like halfway through the regular season almost,
Pretty
and
much.
now the stakes are even higher. But it just feels like we're at a point where we can really start to have a good sense as to like where things are going for each team. But I mean, we'll see. Like, I mean, some teams coming out of nowhere, and some teams are starting to falter, and players who are massive look like massive wins in the first couple weeks are kind of fading, and then other players step up. So it's interesting how that swing goes, as we kind of get through the season.
Yeah, great, man. It's been topsy turvy with injuries, and now you got some guys coming back. Tua being one. I mean, we'll get to a little bit of that probably in
Hmm.
the week 7 stuff. But to your point, I mean, there's lot can change in the next couple weeks,
Oh yeah.
especially barring injuries. But let's get
Oh yeah.
into
Oh
do
yeah.
a quick little refresher of
Sure.
just last week. I mean, let's start
Start us
here. I
off.
mean,
Start us
let's
off,
start.
man.
Let's start here because honestly, I mean, you had a lot of nice takes last week. I will say, well, we'll touch on a little bit of them as we go through a couple of these, and this one, you were right. This was the most points matchup, I should say, from last week, which you did say that, and it came to fruition. I mean, just a massive, just a massive week by both managers. You know what? I'm just going to highlight this gentleman right down here. Saga of Ray Davis. A lot of controversy went around this guy in terms
Hmm.
of Arby's trying to pick him up and what could be allowed and who's really going to be. But what's the best solution if we have a let's say a blind auction? Who should host it? Who where should we send these bids to? But doesn't really matter. Guy ends up back on my team as a handcuff, and boy, did I need it this week. He comes up huge. Looked great. Looked
Huge.
really good.
He is a bowling ball on wheels. And it's cool. His nickname is R2D2, which I think is like one of the coolest nicknames in the NFL right now. I mean, so like a personal note, his story is insane. He's
Yes, it
like
is.
he was homeless. He like had his two siblings were in foster care with him, and then they got
Hmm.
adopted, and it's nuts. Like what a player to root for. And he looked awesome. I mean, I was watching that Jets game, and that first drive, he just shoved it down the Jets' throat. So awesome to see. Awesome pickup by you. I actually would have been totally wrong if who I picked up. I would have thought that Ty Johnson would have potentially been the pickup. I think he got the first carry, and
Hmm.
then didn't get got like another carry or two in the rest of the game. But yeah, Ray Davis looked awesome. That was a heck of a pickup and a play by
Yeah.
you.
My little side note too is Steve, you little rat, just picking up Ty Johnson right before the game starts. I mean, no reason to do that. What if I wanted to pick him up? But anyways, I was confident that Ray Davis would get the early work, but ends up paying off for me. Obviously, the Bills, the Bills players pulled it through for me, which was nice to see
Yep.
on a Monday night. Didn't really have to sweat it
Yep.
out too much. So,
Yep.
only real note I'm gonna say outside of I mean, my guys were my guys. I mean, Jordan Love looked great. Zay Flowers, Drake London. I mean, nice to see Zay Flowers
Yeah.
continue to do what he's doing.
He's been awesome.
Um, so my team did what it did, and honestly, I mean, DeAndre Swift has been huge. He just continues to keep putting up some of these 20-point weeks, which is hey, let's I'm not rooting for the Bears by any means as a Packers fan, but their offense does look like it's starting to click. They're on a
Hmm.
little streak. I mean that division's a tough one for sure. Everyone's above 4-2, and no division games yet. I mean, there'll be a couple this week, I guess, with or two of them this week with the Lions in Minnesota. But um, yeah, man, and DeAndre Swift, thank God, I needed him after the Pacheco injury, so he's really come through the last couple of weeks for me. What's your take? I mean, that offense looks like it's kind of yeah, they're finding some rhythm. I feel like, and their defense is
Yeah,
solid.
I give you credit for sticking with Swift. I would have the first 3 weeks he looked awful. He was missing holes. He wasn't hitting anything. They've got it doubled up. They've really leaned into him. Excuse me, leaned into him in the passing game. And he's looked good. I mean, they kind of narrowed it down to a two-man backfield with him and Roshan. And Swift, he's still not a great runner inside the five. He tries to like hurdle guys, and I'm not really sure what he's doing, but he looks good, and they're scheming him up. So that offense is humming. So
Yep.
yeah, I mean, he weekly RB2 with RB1 upside, and he's when he's playing and they're not on a bye, he should be locked into your lineup. So I think a solid RB2 with Cook. I mean, your starting roster is pretty solidified, kind of moving forward, and you really like to see that.
Yep.
Um, as getting into mid-season, you kind of know who you're starting every single week, and your guys are showing up. Like when you have guys locked into your lineup every week that you feel really good about. I mean, Drake London too has, I think, leveled up from
Definitely.
what the offseason narratives were going to be. They're putting him into the slot a lot more, which I think is huge for him. He's kind of playing that like Cooper Cup role in that sort of Rams style offense. It's not, one for one uh,
Sure.
copy of that, but he's looked good. He's getting a ton of targets, and he's a monster size wise. So
Yep.
yeah, and then Jordan Love, I think that goes into like my Josh Jacobs only having one touchdown this season. And when they get down into the red zone, they throw it, and they're putting the ball in Love's hands, and he's just chucking it all over the yard. So yeah, your squad looks good, man. I mean, you're 5-1.
Yep. Rolling.
Yeah, really, really starting to roll here.
Yeah, opposite end. I mean, Phil, what more can the guy do? Unfortunately, I mean, 130 is a huge week, especially just coming off. I would say probably a little bit disappointing. I mean, kind of up and down Phil's team is. I mean, not record wise, but just performance wise. I mean, he's had some good weeks and had some pretty duds. But I mean, honestly, what hurt him was I think just Olave going out. Um,
Yeah.
early in that game. I mean, that's really the only dud you can kind of criticize if you want a little bit. I mean, that's obviously the glaring holes of negative point 0.5, but that changes the spectrum for sure. I think in terms of this matchup, just you find a goose egg and that's really it. That's the biggest difference I would say on his side. Everything else hit. I mean, I think you nailed the Lockett call. He was due for a tutty and he got one. Which seems like forever ago, but that was that game. I think it was
Hmm.
like 10 days ago at this point. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, I think overall, I think, you kind of look at Phil's team here. I mean, without Jones, obviously from the week 6 bye, but he's got a good team. Like for 1-5, like I feel bad for the guy because like his running backs are stacked. I mean,
Yeah.
Robinson, Pollard's been awesome, like we said. Now Aaron Jones coming back and I guess now he doesn't really he's gonna play Terry McLaurin every week unless he's on a bye. And yeah, I mean, I like Phil's roster. I mean, going against him last week was the first time I really kind of looked at it in a in-depth format, I guess if you want to call it. And I feel like he's got a strong team. I think he shouldn't feel too bad. I mean, 1-5 sucks, but you
Yeah.
know, he certainly has a decent roster.
Yeah, I agree. I think that was one of my worst calls of the year so far was saying Terry McLaurin, you can't start him moving forward. I think I said that in like week 2 or week 3. And I think he's the wide receiver 12 on the year right now. And also Phil with Tyler Algier. I mean, I think he's got a pretty solid flex play because they're giving him work, and
Mhm.
he's like the
Jeez,
thing
yeah.
with Bijan, and Bijan looked good. I mean, I know it was against Carolina, who's probably the worst D in the league, but the thing with Algier is that it's not going to be that total CMC role that I thought we were led to believe in the offseason, because Algier is just straight up, he's just a good player, and he warrants carries because he turns a 3 yard run into a 6 yard run. He turns, a 1 yard loss into like a 2 yard gain, and that shit matters
Mhm.
to coaches. So they're going to keep him on the field, and they're going to keep giving them. He's going to keep giving them reasons to keep giving him the ball. So, um, yeah, I don't know. I think this might be one of Bijan's better games of the year, just because of the opponent that they were playing. But I
Early
mean,
scores too.
he's yeah, and he gets two touchdowns. But I think there is still room for Bijan to get there on long runs. Especially this week against Seattle.
Mhm.
But and we'll touch on that. But yeah, Tony Pollard has been huge. He's
Been
I
great.
think Phil's just he's up and down week to week. I know his matchup against me 2 weeks ago, he put up 150.
Hmm.
Um, and and kind of moving forward, like with Cole Kmet, I mean, he's like a top 12 tight end now moving forward too. With
Definitely.
with the Bears offense humming like the way we just said. But yeah, it's just kind of a tough run out for Phil, being 1-5. But I think I definitely think even if he doesn't make the playoffs, like I think his team is not that walkover matchup that we may have thought kind of a couple
Yeah,
weeks ago.
I agree. I agree. Good take. The silly gooses, man. I
First
get the
place.
pleasure. I got the pleasure of seeing Aaron most Thursday nights with the Quake League. I'll say that I didn't see him this past week, but um, I kind of jab him a little bit. I'm like, you got to be shaken looking down from the leaderboard there. It's been a while since Aaron's team has been at the top, and they got a great team, man. He really does. I mean, 5-1. He's uh he's no slouch, man. He's got pretty much no holes. I mean, we'll kind of touch on it a little bit. I mean, that Brock Purdy trade ends up being a great trade. Gets a 30 spot.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a nice little plug and play, especially just being, just he's got to be frustrated with Mahomes just as a fantasy option. I mean, you kind of just go for the name, but
Can't
it
start him.
just hasn't been there for the last 2 years. I don't think anything's going to progress and get better unless they do make a trade for somebody on the outside. But kind of a subdued game from Chase. That was a weird Sunday night game. Um, Stinky Cincinnati and the Giants. I just nothing noteworthy really in that game. 17-7. I mean, kind of sucked to watch.
Such a
Um,
boring game. Unless you had
this
Tyrone
guy
Tracy, it was such a boring game.
valid. Yeah. This guy's I mean, we're gonna get to it. Obviously, the big news this week was the Jets trade for Adams. And um I mean, hey, no better guy to talk about it than you. Kind of where you see him, maybe him being a wide receiver two, I think was maybe your take in the group text. But who knows? I mean, I don't think Adams has ever played with a guy as talented on the outside or inside, wherever you want to play him, like Wilson. So it'll be interesting to, for Rogers' sake, that he has two terrific options. I mean, 1A and 1B if you want to argue it.
Yeah, I think with Garrett, he's definitely been getting there on volume. I think it was a little disappointing with his game, at least with Minnesota. He had 22 targets and only had 100 yards. On 22 targets, I kind of expect someone to go for like 150, around that range. But I mean, Garrett's just been getting funnel targets. He looks good. At times, he's a frustrating receiver to watch. I know I may mention this. He sometimes like he seemingly like slides when he catches it at times and kind of leaves his feet a lot of the time instead of running through the catch. But I and we I guess now is as good a time as any. So yeah, when Devontae Adams comes over, I think that it is going to be sort of like a 1A, 1B. I do think there is a bit of a gap between the 1A being Adams and Garrett being the 1B. I think it's going to be heavily, heavily funneled to both of them. Where I think, if Adams gets, if Rodgers throws the ball 30 times, I think Adams gets, maybe 12 targets. I think Garrett maybe gets nine, and then Lazard and Brees and, Conklin kind of fill in. But yeah, I think this honestly could make Garrett more efficient because I know they have Adams on the outside. They can move Garrett inside. And that release that he had, I can't remember the corner that it was against when he played against the Bills, where he had a stutter move right off the line and
Hmm.
he had like 3 yards of separation right from the jump. I think that's going to be more and more frequent. So I think Garrett's volume might come down, but I think his efficiency can increase. I do think his red zone, like I do think his touchdowns will probably be capped because I think when they get to the red zone, I think
Yeah.
Adams is going to get most of the looks there. But yeah, I mean, I think weekly, Garrett Wilson, he's a locked in wide receiver too. I don't see any reason to necessarily think that he can have a game like this. 8 for 107 and one. Kind of moving forward. But I mean, I don't necessarily know that it changes too much based on his outlook per week. I think it kind of just like balances the scales where like his volume comes down, but his efficiency and his yards per target kind of go up.
Yeah, that's a good take. I mean, and I do think just from the as a Packers fan, seeing how Rodgers and Adams connect, I mean, that's he was often criticized, and I probably even said it too, that I think he looked Adams' way a little bit too much, a little one sided sometimes. So
Yeah.
it could certainly help. Like I said, the talent to have a wide receiver too, like Garrett Wilson, and it can only help Garrett Wilson, honestly, to have a guy like Devontae in the locker room. So
Yep.
yeah, more to come on a fantasy perspective, but yeah, other than that, I mean, not much. I mean, James Conner, I guess, had a pretty rough game for his standards in terms of getting a 6 pointer, less than 10. The guy's a machine. Packers just jumped on him early, and Arizona just didn't look like they even, they didn't want to fly to Green Bay. It looked like they just like didn't want to even play that game. It was,
Yeah.
right from the jump. I mean, Joe Mixon, he's gotta love seeing this guy come back. I mean, it's substantial, to kind of slot him in now as, arguably as RB1 if you want. I mean, Connor RB2, whatever you want to spin it. But um, yeah, the Packers get him this week, so it'll be interesting. But he still looks good. I mean, I think a lot of people wrote him off in the summer for just as a free agent, like who was going to pick him up. And I mean, just not couldn't be a better spot for Joe Mixon. I think going to a team like Houston with all the the passing weapons, C.J. Stroud, they're leaning on him. I mean, they're finding ways
Yep.
to get in the ball.
Yep. Yeah, they when they traded for Mixon, they
Or
immediately
traded, sorry, yeah.
their verbiage immediately was that he's their three down workhorse. And I know him being out, you can really see like their offense sort of sputtered a little bit. And him being back, it was just right into him being that workhorse. They're doing so many people talk about Mixon's efficiency when he was in Cincinnati. It was a lot of shotgun runs. Now they're doing a lot more under center runs. So, and a much better offensive line in Houston than he had in Cincinnati. And he looks good. I mean, Mixon looks real good. So, I mean, he's a weekly, you know, top 10 at worst RB1. Um, so yeah, I mean, Aaron's team looks good, and Deontay Johnson is just a target. He's just a target machine. So,
Falling out right now. Yep.
yeah. So, yeah, and
I'm,
just looks
I'm
good.
just Yeah,
Seems
and I
rolling.
mean, honestly, not much on the bastard side, unfortunately. I mean, it's just whatever. Projected 109, got 105. Kind of run down the list here. I mean, quickly. I mean, kind of usual suspects. I mean, Diggs and Stroud, Mara, kind of the steady guys. Brock Bowers, steady guys. But
Machine.
those fringe guys. I mean, Mike Evans has you kind of called it a Godwin game. It was a Godwin game. Um, and you get a subdue game from him. He doesn't really have an RB2. We got Nick Chubb. We'll talk about that a little bit coming back this week, so we'll see.
Yep.
But and then you're relying on Christian Kirk. I mean, I think yeah, I was gonna say I think Tyreek had the bye, so with that Tua news, week 8 kind of is the target date. I think I heard today. So um, kind of more to come. I mean, I think his outlook definitely looks up for the Bastards. I mean, Lowe's got to feel good
Yep.
about getting Chubb, getting Hill,
Hell yeah.
getting some guys that he can kind of plug and play and not necessarily like his lineup's going to look a lot more fierce with those guys kind of in the lineup. And like I said, I mean, Ford's out, I think too, right, this week. So
Yep.
we'll get a good look at Nick Chubb. So yeah, tough outing for the Bastards, but definitely some good stuff to look forward to, I think, for him.
Yeah, agreed. And I think with Mike Evans, I think it might be a little more high variance than it was last year. Especially with Godwin moving into the slot this year, with Liam Cohen as their
Go
OC.
ahead.
But their offense looks good. I mean, Baker's arguably an MVP candidate. I think he has like 17 touchdowns and 4 picks this year.
Yeah.
I mean, their offense is humming, and kind of having Nick Chubb fill in that open RB2 spot. I think he's kind of just been treading water with there. I know he was playing Alexander Madison for a few weeks.
Yeah.
But getting Tyreek back, getting Tua back is going to be huge. So I think Logan's team moving forward is going to be kind of a tough out each week, and it kind of might fluctuate too. With Kamara, like with the Saints potentially like going in the tank, like they looked awful last night or on Thursday night, excuse me.
Sure. Yeah.
I think Kamara can get there on volume, at least have a stable floor. I don't know what his ceiling's necessarily going to be, but yeah, I mean, with Nick Chubb coming back, I don't know how many touches he's going to get this week, um, off the knee injury, but I mean, moving forward, I don't think they have any reason not to ramp up his workload, especially with Ford having the hamstring injury.
Yep. Yeah, no, I agree. And honestly, I mean, you kind of mentioned a little bit with Kamara, like there were some rumblings about them trading him. Just with the amount of money that he's owed, I think next year is like 29 million or something like that was his cap hit. So that's a lot of money. So
Yeah,
yeah, I mean we'll see where they go. I mean I remember talking about them after the first 2 weeks. We were like, geez, like the Saints are real, and
yeah,
we couldn't be more wrong. After after the first 2 weeks of
yeah,
football, they look totally different.
yeah,
Um, let's get into this one. I mean, geez, Anth, I it's tough. It's tough. There's no bright spots for the young man. I just, he's trying. He's piecing together a team every week, but
yeah,
I feel like guys are just dropping like flies. I mean, we'll get to, a few guys obviously for the lead up, but, you know, Calvin Ridley, I mean, God, guy had 8 targets and I mean, I guess he did get a catch, but geez. I mean, you heard the interview, I'm sure, of him just saying, I mean, you got to get me the ball. But at the same time, I mean, look who's throwing it to them. I mean, that they're a run heavy team to begin with. Um,
yeah,
yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just I feel bad. I mean, like I said, kind of leading up to this week, like he needed a really big, and he actually got a really subdued game out of Nils, but Anth really needed to hit on like a big home run play. And I mean, honestly, we're each week we're just talking about Chuba Hubbard as being like his bright spot. Um,
yeah,
not really good, not really a good fantasy team outlook. If the only guy that we can actually say anything nice about is Chuba Hubbard.
yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's really not much. There's really no other takeaways from the Finkel side. He's basically drowning. And he really needs, McCaffrey or Puka, which doesn't look like it's going to happen anytime soon, which is tough.
Yeah, it's tough. It's one of these it's a lost season. And I know it's like week 7 but it's looking
Definitely.
like that. And now, Rashad White, he's a little banged up and he's kind of in now a three-way RBBC. Ramondre Stevenson is a little banged up. Devin
Yeah.
Singletary might have had his job usurped. Like it's rough, man. I mean, he plays Cortland
Yeah.
Sutton last night, and we can kind of recap. He plays Cortland Sutton last night, and Cortland Sutton has like one target. It's rough, man. And applaud to him that he keeps putting out a weekly lineup. He keeps trying. It's just like I think one of these weeks it'll hit. As the
He
way the
did
variance
for one
goes in
week.
fantasy,
Yeah.
something will hit. He'll put up like 120 or something. But yeah, man, it's feel for him, but
Yeah. I mean, I actually forgot. That was a good reminder. I mean, yeah, before week 6 or during week 6, I should say, for this matchup, you're right. Like his three running backs, like essentially were out. Singletary at the end of the week, Rashad White, and Stevenson. Like they all were like basically announced out, like leading up to Sunday. Yeah,
brutal,
tough.
brutal.
Yeah, and then you get Shaheed, who's actually been at least a decent bright spot as a plug-in. He's on the
Yeah,
IR now too. Done. So yeah,
done for the year.
not really much to note on Ant's team. He knows it. He's feeling it. It is what it is. It's not an
Yeah,
ineptitude like we always tell him. I mean, which you can't hang your hat on that, but yeah, just I've never seen something like this quite a while in terms of injuries and just bad luck. Honestly, it is just bad luck.
yeah.
Um,
Injuries to critical pieces of his team, his first two picks. So
yeah,
critical roster crippling injuries that brutal, man.
yeah.
Yeah, it sucks.
Feel for your buddy. But yeah, Nils, I mean, not much work needed to be done to take this one. Not really much to note either. I mean, outside of I mean, I guess Travis Etienne, you can note that. I mean, the guy, if he's hurt, they should just leave him out. I mean, the other guys, like Tank Bigsby's running better than him, and then Duke, was it Duke Johnson? Yeah, he was getting some tread.
Dearness Johnson.
Oh, sorry, Dearness Johnson. Yeah, I don't know why I said Duke Johnson. That's a
They're
real
both the
throwback.
same player.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it was. he just doesn't look right this year. And then I mean the Najee Harris was a nice bright spot, probably from Nils' standpoint. I mean, he is getting a ton of volume, just not scoring. And he finally gets in the end zone, gets himself a 20-point week. Like I said, I really no crazy takeaways from Nils' team this week. I mean, he probably happy to also see, Jordan Mason gets kind of skirts away from an injury as well. So
Yep. Yeah, I think Kyler's been pretty disappointing this year.
mhm.
I thought the Kyler McBride stack was gonna, carry him most weeks, but Kyler's been pretty disappointing. We kind of touched on it the previous matchup, but that overall game, um, or the overall team for Arizona they look off. I think they might click and kind of get it going later into the year. But they look a little out of sync. They look sloppy. They look like they don't really know how to deploy their personnel that much. They finally got McBride a lot more usage this week,
Mhm.
making him like more of a focal point. But yeah, man, I thought DK would be in a pretty good spot against San Francisco.
Yeah.
He's been a monster a couple weeks, and then he had a couple bad weeks. I think we'll get to it, but I think this week could be another good spot for him. But I mean, it feels like Nils's team is better than I mean he's 5-1. So
What was I? Not a
it
bad.
feels like yeah, it feels like his team is a lot better than he's been showing. And he's getting wins when his team doesn't, he got a win against Anthony putting up 74. He got a win by 0.14 against me. So those are two,
Yeah.
those wins matter. When it comes to seeding and it comes to playoffs and everything. So um, you know, he's getting those wins, so
Yeah.
that's good for his outlook.
Yeah, he's humming right along. He gets me this week. This will be a big one for the two 5-1s. But Steve, damn it, he gets another win. But yeah, Steve's got a good team. I mean, I like to give him some shit, but yeah, we keep
Yeah,
saying
he
this every
does.
week. Yeah, week in and week out, he's got a real good team. Josh Allen gets to that 30 mark, basically. Um, Marvin Harrison got knocked out early in that game too, so I thought that was gonna maybe be a factor depending on how many points he really needed going into Monday night. But um, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, George Kittle, I mean, the guy's killing it. I mean, I think that's for me, kind of looking at his team, like George Kittle was always a guy that was drafted based off of name, but maybe not necessarily every week in and week out getting this target share or really getting into the end zone, I should say, on a weekly basis. And he gets
Yeah,
two from him, and yeah, he just looks really good. Like they're like Brock Purdy's going to him. Like he's been like I think the most consistent skill player for them, this year, just in terms of like volume and obviously he sat the one week, but yeah, I mean you gotta I mean, as a Niners fan too, I'm sure you love seeing what George Kittle's doing for him fantasy wise.
yeah, agreed. I think Kittle is he the tight end one so far this year?
Let's check. I was just looking at this, but
It's
okay,
got to
so
be him or Bowers.
yeah,
I'm is it Kittle? I was
Kittle.
pretty positive it's Kittle. Yeah, I mean
Pretty large
it's
gap too. Yeah, on
yeah,
a points per game basis.
yeah, with that San Francisco offense, I know we've seen it at least since CMC's been there. If you take away one person out of the big four that they have in their offense, like the other three sort of start to eat. And when you take away a couple, with McCaffrey and I know Debo's he's been back for a couple weeks, but um, yeah, Kittle's been a monster. So I mean, he's the tight end one on the year, obviously. So yeah,
And
I mean, great pick. What do you think him in the fifth round or something? Fifth, sixth round? Yeah,
yeah, something around there. I mean, I gotta. I mean, just give my boy a shout out to Jaden Reed. Love the guy. He has
he's a
been a
baller.
killer. Been a killer, dude. He's great. I love all.
Yeah, he's a baller.
I loved him last year, and yeah, I've thrown Steve a couple silly texts of like hey, why don't you trade me Jaden Reed a little bit here. Kind of more of as a joke because I mean, there's really nothing I can give him that would be anything valuable compared to Jaden Reed, but. I think he's like sneakily like the wide receiver 4 or 5 from a points per game basis this
That
year.
would
So
make sense.
he's been really yeah, I just looked at this 4.
Yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah, so he's been great. I think that's that's a really, a big outlet, I think, for Steve in terms of just like, I don't know. I mean, I don't think none of his receivers really necessarily like scream it because, like, I mean, Marvin Harrison, yeah, I guess, but like you just noted about, you know, Arizona on a week out basis, like, can you count on them necessarily every week? I don't know. I mean, he got hurt, so chalk that one up obviously to the injury, but I think Jaden Reed, I mean, that's a nice little, a little player to kind of count on for 16 a week, 17 a week. I mean, I don't know. I that's the only note I
Yeah.
would have. And J.K. Dobbins still doing it too, huh? Thought he was going to slow down at some point.
He looks good. And I mean, 20, and I think, off the bye, there was, maybe talk, and Gus Edwards now on IR, there's talk maybe they get the doll more involved. And they did, but I mean, J.K. Dobbins, as long as he's healthy, I mean, he's, a weekly RB2 with RB1 ceiling.
Yeah.
He's getting the rock. Like he got 25 carries last week. So I mean, they're leaning on him. He looks good. It's insane that he looks as good as he does off the Achilles injury, but I mean, he's talent's always been there for Dobbins, so it's awesome to see him healthy and running really well. And he's, they're leaning on him. So I mean, he's got three good backs: Gibbs, Kyron, and Dobbins. He's got Reed and Marv, and then Pickens kind of fills in, but yeah, Steve's got a good team, real good team.
I mean, it's probably hindsight, but I don't, I want to look up their stats here. I mean, because last week, all right, he had 8. Let's see what Chase Brown did last week. 16. You got to call him out for this. I'm sorry, Arby's, but I mean, Chase Brown looks more explosive. If you're going to play one of the Cincinnati backs, I feel like you had to play Chase, and that would have got you the W. So I mean, again, just another running back decision. Arby's has been plagued with them. Yeah, the Kenneth Walker move, and now for Steele, and now the Zach Moss, Chase Brown, share of the backfield in Cincinnati. I don't know. I think the writing was on the wall last week, but I mean, I don't know. What's your take? I mean, I kind of looked at that while I was looking at the recap here. I'm like, damn, we should have played Chase.
Yeah, surprising. I mean, I know Moss was projected for higher point totals. I think Yahoo probably just assumed that he was the early down back and maybe, he would they would be up and they would just kind of rely on him. But like you said, I mean, Chase Brown looks better. He's getting more
Explosive.
comfortable with, yeah, he looks obviously way more explosive than Zach Moss. And I think they're trusting him a little bit more in pass pro. I know they're throwing a bunch, but I mean, if Chase Brown, he's getting more and more work on early downs, and I mean, I know he fumbled also. He went out. It went out of
Mhm.
the went out of play, but
Yep.
Moss fumbling. Like if he's gonna fumble and you know he's not looking explosive and not looking like he's efficient when he's running. I mean, I don't know how you continue to play him over Brown. That was curious for me too. I
Yeah.
would kind of lean into Zach Moss as well. But yeah, tough loss. But I mean, and then Brian Thomas with the five,
Yep.
their whole offense they were just out of sync.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Laporta's kind of been he's he had his best game of the year, but he's been, I mean, just like a mid-range tight end one, not
Hmm.
what he was last year. So I mean, lower week for Arby's, but you know, it's kind of one of those rosters like he's the middle of the pack team,
Just
and
gonna say that. Yep.
it kind of can fluctuate week to week, but we'll see.
Cooper
We'll see
Cup's
kind of.
on the horizon
Yep,
coming back for him too.
yep.
So
I think this week. I think he's playing this week.
is it this week? Yeah, okay. I was gonna say I
I
knew
think so.
that was the
Mhm.
talk. Well, let's get to your matchup. I mean, that was you needed it. You absolutely needed
Yep,
it.
yep.
Take it away. This is you.
Yeah, so Gino, so I was not looking too hot after, Gino and Jackson Smith and Jigba sack on Thursday night got me 24. But Tank Bigsby then gets me freaking 2.4 in the London game. So going into the 1 o'clock slate, I was didn't have a great outlook. It ends up that, AJ Brown comes back, looks like a monster again, and then Tyrone Tracy just comes out and saves my fantasy week. So,
Absolutely.
thankfully, um, Rick's team kind of has a down week and, I pick up a win. So, I mean, I think moving forward, and we can kind of get to it with my matchup, but if I had Vegas in, I thought the Jets D would show up against Buffalo like they normally do.
Yeah, got to
Like they normally did under Salah and Josh Allen, but the Jets have nobody rushing the passer outside of Will McDonald, who is, I think, second in the NFL in sacks. But they got nothing. They get blown off the ball in the run. They're banged up in the secondary. They lost. I think DJ Reed's out for a couple weeks. I know Michael
Mhm.
Carter is on. I think Michael Carter, their starting slot. I think he's going to be out this week, but he'll probably be back next week. And Sauce honestly hasn't. I mean, he's great in coverage, but he doesn't really make plays on the ball. He hasn't been
Mhm.
tackling that well, so it's frustrating. But yeah, I mean, a win's a win, and I definitely needed it. So um,
Yeah. You
it's
know,
it's funny. It's funny. I will say it's funny that Tank Dell has his best game of the year against
I was
me,
going to say that.
and my boy, who I should have drafted over Tank Dell, David Montgomery, who's one of my favorite players in the league, goes out and puts up two rushing tutties on me. So that
Yeah.
was kind of funny. But even then, I still get the win.
Survived.
So yeah, survived.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that was probably my only note in this matchup. Obviously, I mean, the trade, Tank Dell, Jackson Smith. I mean, Tank Dell finally gets on the board. I mean, with the Nico Collins injury, I think that certainly helps his trajectory for the next couple of weeks. And obviously the relationship that it's been noted with CJ Stroud, but
Yeah.
um, David Montgomery with the extension. I got a lot of I got some frustrated fantasy Gibbs owners, I'll say, not necessarily Steve, that not exactly thrilled with the David Montgomery extension, but I mean they're feeding everybody at least in that
He's
backfield, and
what are
he's
what
a
are what
beast.
are yeah, what do they expect? Montgomery, like
That's what
Gibb,
I'm
and
saying.
would Gibbs, you look at Tony Pollard, would Tony Pollard, when he was backing up Ezekiel Elliott and was working in tandem with him, was way better than he was the year that he was the workhorse in Dallas. So like if Gibbs was getting all the work, would he be better
I
than he
agree.
is now? I mean, probably. But like, then could potentially get banged up. So like, Gibbs in his role is an
Perfect.
RB1, and
Yep.
yeah. And you know, Montgomery's earned it. He gets, he's literally everything that the Lions want, and they've said as much. So, and
They have
it's yeah, it is funny. I will say, going back to that trade with Tank Dell, it is one of those
uh,
fantasy, of course, kind of things where the week after I trade him, Nico Collins gets injured. It's just
hmm
like, of
yeah.
course.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, I just gonna say, I mean, just from the Detroit standpoint, like both those guys are RB, like in fantasy are RB1s. Like Dave
Yep.
Montgomery is an RB1. Like
Yep.
Jameer Gibbs, same thing, RB1. Like wild,
Yep.
but yeah, big win. You get it. You get into the. You're just above the 1-5 teams now, so that has to feel pretty good.
Yeah.
Let's close it out. This is I mean, God, Andre is just reeling right now.
Free
Unfortunately, I
fall.
mean, yeah, I mean, really started hot. Obviously, you don't win a chip after 3 weeks, but had to feel good, and sort of as Rice's injury went, so did he. It seems like because he's just been just plummeting. Unfortunately, I mean, 110 is a good number. Um, just Tiburon, I mean, it was just his week. I mean, I just he needed a bounce back week, and he got it. I mean, Ayuk's
Yep.
been disappointing. We kind of noted it. I mean, Dak, geez, that's tough. I mean, Ryan, hey, if you want Baker, send me an offer. Um, but
I was side note, I was looking at teams who don't really have a quarterback, and including myself. I kind of viewed Gino in a maybe like one half lesser tier than Baker kind of every week. But I was like, man, some teams got to pull the trigger on trading for Baker. He's
Baker, I
he's
mean, I mean, we said it. I mean, Burrow on
yeah,
Andy's side as well. I think there's
yeah,
definitely
agreed.
there's some guys with some holes, and I mean, Dak, I think got exposed for sure in that game, and just in general. But anyways, I mean, hey, with you got a 3-pointer, Anthony will hum the same melody. you get anything less than 10 out of your quarterback and you throw up a 128. Pretty amazing. The rest of his team just went off. I mean, Godwin had a hell of a game. You called it. It was a Godwin game.
Yep.
Um, we kind of said it was like a get right game, not necessarily get right because he's been amazing, but certainly he got right. I mean, he got fed early and often, it felt like in that game. Um, and then just, I mean, hey, he's got the number one fantasy player. I think Derrick Henry's been unstoppable. I
Yeah.
mean, this guy's incredible still.
Yeah.
Um, what more to say? What more can you say about Derrick Henry? The guy's amazing.
It's funny because it's everything that everyone I remember when he was in Tennessee last year and everyone was thinking when Gus Edwards was scoring so many touchdowns for Baltimore last year, everyone was saying, "Oh man, imagine Derrick Henry on Baltimore, how good would he be?" Well, he'd be the number one fantasy player
Yeah.
if he was on their team. So, and now we get to see it. And I mean, like you said, he looks awesome. And their offense has finally picked it up. Like their offensive line has really solidified. I still think I don't think it's not like top 10, but it's serviceable. It's like, league average for they need it to be. And then Mark
Mhm.
Andrews finally, sort of gets there. If he gets rolling too, I mean,
Yep.
I think Ryan's team, has a really good weekly outlook. Kind of moving forward. So, and I think if Ayuk is his potential worst starting spot, that's a
Hmm.
pretty good place to be. And for the love of God, please make a trade for Burrow or Baker because they
Yeah.
need to be started. They need to be started every week. Like they're
Yeah.
just too
Hey,
fun. They're too fun. They're too fun to watch be
I'm
on
open.
people's benches.
I'm open for offers, but I will say, like you said, to your point, I kind of just want to circle. I mean, Saquon Barkley's been amazing. I mean, really, really
Yeah.
fun. But
Yep.
I just on just a pure football take, the Eagles, they look something's going on there. They got to figure that organization's got to figure it out. And if it's getting rid of Sirianni, like they got to pull the trigger because, I mean, they're not in
Jets did.
panic mode. Yeah, they're not in full panic mode yet. I don't think, but um, they eke out that Cleveland win. But to see him like talking smack to like the fans, like, come on. I mean, you look like a loser. He is kind of a loser, but um, yeah, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
I just it's subdued game. They look like trash. I mean, you obviously got really the only fantasy kind of note really from that game. I mean, in terms of AJ Brown, but yeah, I don't know. I just a subdued game obviously from Saquon. I mean, we haven't seen too many of those, but yeah, everything else hits on Ryan's side, and then Dre. I mean, I don't. I feel bad for the guy. Like he just he's got to be down in his dumps. I mean, he's just this lineup this week was just unfortunate. Like he just was pulling at straws here. I mean, the Eckler play ended up being okay, obviously with Robinson being out last week, and then he just had to play Jalen Warren. I think. I mean, I know Achan was on bye, oh, and so was Kareem
Mhm.
Hunt. So
And
yeah,
Devontae
not
Adams is out.
and Devontae. Okay, well, the outlook moving forward looks actually pretty good.
Yeah,
I not
could be
kind
all
of
right.
remembering. Yeah, I mean, he's got some pieces that have some uptick. I mean, I think if I was an Adams owner, I would certainly feel better about him going with Aaron Rodgers than being
Same.
on Las Vegas. But yeah, some more to
Yep.
come. I mean, nice. The Debo game was nice, I think, for him to see. Just it's so up and down with Debo, and he started so hot that I thought maybe we are just going to get a freak Debo this year. But um, a couple subdued games, I should say. I mean, one obviously sat, so yeah. I mean, he had 10 the other week, I guess, so I can't really criticize too much. But I feel like the 20-point weeks are like what you want from Debo. And kind of
Yeah.
maybe necessarily expect, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, what's your take on Andy? I mean, obviously he's kind of flubbering a little bit here after the Rice injury, I feel like, but not a terrible roster outside of that. And then Miami's on the up, so he might get another running back that he can actually play.
Yeah, I think his roster actually shapes up pretty well from this point forward. I mean Jaden Daniels is I had a hot take I
Amazing.
think I fired off online where I think I said Jaden Daniels wouldn't be a QB1 even with health, and obviously that was completely incorrect. He looks like one of the best quarterbacks to come out like Stroud aside in a really long time.
Mm,
His
he's been
I
great.
mean yeah, he's been awesome. And then he has Debo, he has Adams kind of settling in. Having two Jets, I mean, I think the Jets offense is going to be totally fine. I think having Adams and Hall, I don't necessarily think is like it's not like you have, freaking, I don't know, some like two players. It's not like you have two players from the Browns or something. And
To take.
then,
Yeah.
having Achan coming back with Tua and then Evan Ingram kind of slotting into his, weekly
Yeah.
tight end, I think his roster is going to be fine. And even Jacoby Myers now, I know he's probably going to miss this week, but
Yep.
Jacoby Myers or Kareem Hunt kind of settling into his flex. I think Andy's roster is going to be fine. And then, maybe he swings a trade for Burrow and can upgrade maybe like a 2-for-1 or something like that. Or just keep Burrow in case, Daniels, God forbid something he were to miss time for something. But he hasn't been really taking hits, which was a big
No.
concern, kind of coming in. He's been really protecting himself. So that's awesome to see. And Cliff Kingsbury he's been in his damn bag scheming up looks. They
Great.
run. Did you see the one play? I can't remember where it was. This is a total side note, but they run
Gosh.
like they run a screen, and you know how most screens they'll just bail, like three linemen will bail out, and then they'll have like three linemen figuring out who they have to pick up, and then sometimes it gets like messy.
Sure.
Like Cliff's been running this like slip screen where they'll just have the center leak out, and then it's just the center operating as like a lead blocker.
That's
And I'm
sick.
like, why is that not the thing that everyone does? And it's been working, and like their offense is humming. It's really, really awesome
Are
to
they?
see. And I think Washington, like their defense is starting to kind of play a little bit better. Um, yeah, and I think if Philly, falters at all, or God forbid they lose this week, then I think Washington has a really, really good chance of winning that division.
Yeah, I mean that's a good take. I mean, I think I mean they definitely need, and they got rid of a few some playmakers on the defensive side, but yeah, they've been fun to watch on the offensive side, I'll say that.
Yeah.
And definitely producing some fantasy studs. I mean, I think Jaden Daniels is definitely in that conversation as the top 10. Um, and honestly, I mean, Brian Robinson's been pretty awesome. I know he sat this week,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
uh, and then you mentioned earlier, obviously, about McLaurin. So yeah, there's some fun pieces to own. I didn't think I would ever say that about a
I
Washington player.
it's crazy. And the way that their defense plays, I know they actually just lost Deron Payne, their
Mhm.
defensive tackle. I don't know if he's out for the year. I can't recall off the top of my head if he's out for the year or if he's out an extended period of time. I know they put him on IR. So I
Mhm.
think he's out. I think he's out for a good amount of time. But their defense, they're going to be in shootouts constantly. So I think like I don't know if it's going to be anything like a team's either going to be chasing points or it's going to be a back and forth game. I think their team totals each week are going to be one of the higher matchups on the week. I think the matchup this week with Carolina is at 51.5, which I think is tied for the
Jeez.
highest with the Seattle Atlanta game. So yeah, I mean Washington, they're fun, man. It's crazy that we're talking about the Commanders like this, but
Yeah.
they still got to change that damn name.
Yeah.
But they're
I
they're
hate that.
they're fun. They're fun to watch, and it's awesome to see Jaden Daniels every week.
So we went 4-2. We had a couple of differences, but we both go 4-2.
Okay.
Gets me to 16-8, at least being on the pod. So I'm trying to in some decent weather here with the pickums. But let's get to week 7. I mean, we obviously got some Thursday night action, and I mean, shooting or filming this and recording this, I guess, a few hours before the the London game. Um, we probably have a pretty good outlook on most of the teams here in terms of who's going with who. So we'll take it
Yep.
away here. This is a huge one. The 2-5-1 teams, both I think are on 5 game winning streaks, if I'm not mistaken. Something around those lines, I want to say. What a pathetic outing by New Orleans. Like I spent a couple fab dollars on them thinking that was going to be a good play, just a shitty Thursday night game. And I started second guessing myself slightly, um, just from the standpoint that wasn't really sure after some of those guys were going out, like Olave and then Shaheed, like, should I play the Saints D? I don't know. End up playing them. Hey, I got 3 out of it. They didn't go anything negative. So um, and then I do have to play, hopefully, maybe somebody that's going to get some action in this guy, Sean Tucker.
Hell
Um,
yeah.
so I have to play him this week. Swift's on bye. Couldn't play Zeke. He's on bye as well. Dropped him. Um, Yeah, so I don't know. My outlook is interesting this week, but I guess so is Nils. I mean, he's got Douglas, who's been actually pretty hot. Drake May's been chucking it with him. I mean, at least for the first game that they were together. And I mean, I don't know. I'm gonna pick against myself. I'm gonna go with the Beeve, just because I think I got. I mean, hey, if Sean Tucker Sean Tucker has a hell of a game, I guess. I'm looking all right. I mean, the rest of my roster looks pretty good, but the Saints D didn't help me out on Thursday, and like I said, I'm basically playing potentially an RB3 and on his own team. We're not even really sure. So I don't know. Go ahead, give me. I mean, what do you see? What do you think? I mean, it looks like this has got to be our lineups. I mean, I was looking at Nils' matchup or Nils' roster going into it with CD on bye, and same thing with Keenan. He's got to go Douglas, and that's not a bad play.
Yeah, Pop Douglas, he's obviously can't play ETN. I don't even know if ETN's gonna play.
Yeah, can't.
Yeah, I think Pop Douglas is a pretty good play. I don't
Yeah,
know. He's sort of like Diet Coke, Josh Downs to me, where he's kind of going to get schemed up looks. He can do some work over the middle of the field. Maybe he has like a random touchdown, but I think he has a pretty solid floor for like 11 points. I'm going to pick you in this matchup though.
all right.
Reason being, I think you're looking too much at Sean Tucker and you're not looking enough at the potential shootouts that you're going to get with Jordan Love in Houston, Drake
I
London
need
in
all those though.
Seattle, Jefferson, Detroit, and Zay Flowers in Tampa. And I think and even James Cook with Tennessee. I know Tennessee has a pretty good D, but I think they're like 9 point favorites. It was actually just reported that I saw today that Mason Rudolph is actually starting
Yep,
for Tennessee.
I see that.
So, yeah, I'm gonna take you in this matchup. I
All right.
think I know Brian Robinson's back. And
Yep.
I think this is gonna be the highest scoring game of the week. But
Okay.
yeah, I
Two five
mean, yeah,
two
it's
five and
I
one
think it
teams.
yeah, I think there's gonna be and a lot of players have really good matchups. Like I think the over under in Atlanta, like I said, is 51 and a half. I think DK could get there. I think
Yep.
Sam Darnold's going to have to throw. And because even with, Detroit losing Hutchinson, I don't know how much they're going to run, even if Aaron Jones comes back, which is looking likely that
Yep.
he plays. But yeah, I think this is gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun to track your matchup with Nils and kind of see what who ends up coming out. But I'm gonna pick you in this one.
Love it. Yeah, we got some late games too. I got a Monday nighter for sure. Ooh, look at these guys, the Southerners playing against each other this week. Um, yeah, this is gonna be a good one. I mean, both guys kind of wouldn't say reeling. I mean, Andy for sure, but kind of sitting at that 500 mark. I mean, this is a big week for these guys. Probably not the week you want to see Kamara. I mean, thank God he gets to 8, and we're in a full point PPR league. But I mean, 6 catches for 14 yards. That's basically what got him there.
Yeah.
Pretty pretty pathetic Thursday night game. Um, damn. All right, let me look. Let me look this through because this is a big week for Andy. Andy's got the roster
Yeah, I'm
out.
gonna
He's
I'm
rolling
gonna
everyone
take
out.
yeah, I'm gonna take Andy in this week.
I think so too. I'm going to go with Dre as well. This is his lineup. This is his week. I mean, this is
Yeah,
the guys that he
the team.
drafted besides Kareem Hunt. I would say. I mean, this is the guys he's rolling with. So, um, yeah, I like it. I think subdue game out of Kamara, and we're not really sure we're going to get out of Chubb just on the other side of the ball. And I mean, we still have one more week of I mean, who's even throwing it down in Miami now? Do they make a switch at all, or are they just still
No,
rolling
I
with what's
think
his name?
it's still
Um,
Huntley.
is it Huntley? Okay, still Scoop. Um,
Yep.
yeah, so I mean, at Indy, which is definitely a team that, who knows? We'll see what Tyreek does, but um, yeah, I'm gonna go with Dre too. I will chalk on that one. I don't think there's really much to touch on. I mean, I think if Dre doesn't get it this week with this lineup, what else? He's got to feel down the dumps.
Yeah. I think Adam scores. I think tougher matchup for Brees. But I think he can still get there with some dump offs. And they've been utilizing Brees and or at least they utilized him with Todd Downing coming in. That I my God, that seeing so much motion and so much spacing in the middle in the field with the Jets offense last week was just like a breath of fresh air. But I think he's going to be carried by Jaden Daniels. I think Daniels can just come out, and I know we always say like, oh, bad defenses, maybe they'll get up and maybe they'll, just, if they get out to a big lead, maybe they'll, just kind of coast and kind of like run the ball and drain the clock. Like some teams just get up. And I remember when Kansas City, when they had Mahomes and Tyreek and they played the Jets in 2020. I think it was 2020 or 2021 when the Jets were awful and they got up like 40 to something and they just kept scoring and Mahomes threw like six touchdowns. Like they can do like teams can do that too,
Sure.
where they
I mean,
get
look at the
up and they
Lions.
just keep scoring. And the Commanders did that against Arizona where they just got up and they just kept scoring and kept scoring. And I think this could be a huge game for Jaden Daniels. So and I think an Achane going up against Indianapolis, I think could be a get right spot for him too, even um
Absolutely.
with Pro Bowler Snoop Hunley. So um yeah, I'm gonna take Dre in this one.
Yeah, I like it. I agree. Fink. God, Fink. Yeah, just I mean, honestly,
Um,
can't pre couldn't predict it. I mean, game script. Unfortunately, Cortland Sutton doesn't get a target somehow.
So
Um,
man, they flipped and they changed to playing younger guys. Troy Franklin, I think, leads
yeah,
with in targets. They have some guy whose last name is Vele, who I don't even know what school he went to. Um, Yeah. Oh my God. And it's
yeah.
crazy because I would have thought that Cortland Sutton would have been like a pretty good play too.
I think he had like 15 or 16 last week, didn't he? Yeah, I was gonna say
Yeah.
I know he scored.
Yeah. He's been pretty
I mean,
solid this year, all considering.
he's got looks. Yeah, I mean, you got to. It just yeah, it's Thursday night has not been the whole season has been Anthony's friend, but Thursday night definitely hasn't been his friend. Outside of the only week he won when Kirk Cousins nearly put up 50. But anyways, yeah, it's
Right.
tough look, and then Denver's defense, yeah, 25
Bro,
spots.
they
So
look awesome.
Rick's got to be yeah, they're a really good defense.
Really good D. Yeah.
But yeah, Rick's got to be feeling good. I mean couple interesting plays, obviously. I mean, Taylor being out, he's got to go with Sermon. We don't really necessarily know between him and Goodson. Sermon kind of came back down to earth a little bit last week. So we'll see. But yeah, really hard to go against Rick after the start from Thursday night. Kind of jumping out ahead here and just kind of looking at some matchups. I mean, yeah, I mean, Ant's gonna have a couple big games, and like I don't really necessarily know who. I mean, Chuba could potentially get a 20 spot. I mean, against Washington, there's definitely gonna be a ton of points in that game. But you're right. I mean, Singletary's definitely going to be at least in a timeshare now. Stevenson is playing. I didn't really get any update on him. Full
Yeah.
participant. So
Looks like
yeah,
he's
so
gonna play.
looks like he's going to go. So that's probably good news for Anth.
Yep.
Doesn't have to make too many decisions from outside of that. So yeah, I got to go with Rick. Hard not to at this point, to be honest with you. Even though, like I
Yeah,
said, he's got
same.
some interesting names going, but
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Rick also. He's he it's kind of funny too. He's playing Mooney and Anthony has Cousins on the other side. So even in a shootout where,
yep,
Cousins throws three, four touchdowns, I mean, odds are that Mooney's probably going to get one of them.
yep,
So, um,
yep.
yeah, and same thing, kind of along the lines of Andy's team. I think Lamar can come out
I was just gonna
and
say that.
put up like 35. So, yeah, I'm gonna go with Rick too.
Yep, I think that's an easy one. Sorry, Ant. Oh, let's see here. Oh, your matchup with Arby's. This looks like a build to be a nice one. I'll run down here. This is the first time looking at it. I mean, hey, you're 2/3 of the way of getting your trio of receivers for a week. Gotta feel nice
Yeah,
to get those guys back.
yeah. Thankfully, Neighbors is back. Yeah, well, and TBD to like full transparency, I very if ETN's out, I'm probably going to end up playing Bigsby over Tyron Tracy.
Yep,
Um, but I
it's gonna be an interesting one.
It is going to be interesting.
He is Charbonnet if Walker doesn't play. I know he just popped up on like
Oh
with an
yeah, yeah,
illness.
with an illness. It's really funny. I saw someone post that Kenneth Walker's birthday is actually tomorrow. So if
Getting
he
lit.
missed the game, yeah, it would be yeah, he might be popping bottles tonight. We'll see. I don't know.
That's
But
hilarious.
yeah, it's really funny.
I like
Um
I'm gonna go with you, Trey. I think I like your matchups and he's got a couple question marks, I think, on his side, just from like I think Green Bay's D is not gonna they've been really good on takeaways, but I feel like it's gonna be more of a shootout if we're gonna win it, even at a home game against Houston. So right away I kind of like the D that you guys are. I mean, I know kind of criticized the Jets D last week, but um they might get Russell Wilson, I think, this week, the
I think
Jets.
so. Yeah.
So you never know. I don't think he's going to come out and light it up, but who knows? So I like that standpoint, just kind of moving my way up to down, or down to up, I should say, from the matchup here. And yeah, I think Tracy or Bigsby. I mean, that's not going to really change too much for you, I don't think. I mean, and then you got your studs. I mean, Neighbors and Brown. I think that's
Yep.
going to be a fun one to watch. You're getting points no matter who has the ball.
Yeah. And then I like going back to that Atlanta Seattle game. That game's going to be fun to watch. I think
Mhm.
JSN is he's due for he's due for another touchdown this year. He's been getting a lot of volume actually. I think he's probably in a good spot against Atlanta, at least running inside. He doesn't really necessarily need to face AJ Terrell. And I know AJ Terrell, he's a good corner, but he's not, I don't know if he's like a shy away shutdown corner, which I do think on the
He's
opposite
been awesome.
side, I I do think on the opposite side that Brian Thomas has a serious Christian Gonzalez potential issue in New England. I don't know who else because Christian Gonzalez shadows someone.
Yep.
So I don't know who else he would shadow other than Brian Thomas. I don't think he's shadowing Christian Kirk, and I don't know why he would shadow Gabe Davis. So I think Brian
True.
Thomas could have a rougher go. But I mean, who knows? Thomas can always get off for a long touchdown. Um, but we'll see. I think Jalen Hurts' rushing can be an issue for the Giants because especially if because Jordan Mailata's out for Philly. I know their
Yep.
offensive line's still good, but I think it's gonna be tight. I'm
Yep.
gonna pick myself also. I think just because I feel good about the potential scoring that's gonna happen in with Atlanta and Seattle and the Philly um,
Giants. Yeah.
Giants game. And I think this is a week that Jacobs actually finally gets into the end zone, for God's sake. He's fourth in the league in rushing and has one rushing touchdown.
As I
So
say,
that's
yeah,
that's
it's been
that's
rough.
gonna have to even out at some point. So and also with Zach Ertz, maybe this is a week that he gets his first touchdown of the year. So, we'll
Yep.
see. I'm
I
still
like it.
still TBD on if I play Tracy or Bigsby. I don't know if I want to play someone on Jacksonville's team, especially
In
with
in
Dearness
London,
Johnson
right?
potentially, yeah, in London, especially with Dearness Johnson potentially lurking. And Tracy's, he looked so good on Monday.
Yeah.
I don't know how you put that back in the bottle. I still think Singletary's gonna get there, but I also don't know if I want to play two Giants. So maybe that's just me being a coward.
No, it's not a bad takeaway, honestly. And the thing is, are they renaming the Jags to like I don't they were like I feel like they play in London every season. They
Yep.
had two, I think two, right? Back to back weeks.
They stayed over there. Yep.
Unbelievable.
Well, their owner, I think, owns
Yeah,
one
yeah,
of the
I know
one of
that.
the Premier League teams or something, right?
I didn't know
Or
that
some
until
professional soccer team.
yeah, I was gonna say I didn't know that until they made that announcement because I was like, how are they staying 2 weeks? Like, how do they schedule that 2 weeks out? Like out in
Yeah,
London.
yeah,
It's probably the only reason Doug Peterson hasn't been fired. I mean, he's still in London. They got to wait for him to come
yep,
back. But
yeah,
yeah. So we'll see. I mean, that's playing anyone. I feel like on Thursday night or any of those early morning London games suck. But we'll see.
yeah,
This is another awesome game. Riggs at
yeah.
four and two,
A lot of good matchups this week.
taking on the Goose, the silly Goose.
Gonna be fun.
who's been red hot as well. Let's look. Let's take a second look down this list because this is going to be a shootout,
Yeah,
an
it's cool
absolute
too.
shootout.
It's I'm glad we get these like 1-4, 2-3
Two, three.
matchups, especially with only two teams on a bye, because everyone kind of has and a lot of
Joanna.
players are coming back from injury. Riggs somehow Marvin Harrison gets through concussion protocol and is probably going to
Mm-hmm.
play,
Yep.
which you rarely ever see, so that's awesome. And then he gets Kyron back off the bye.
Yeah.
Yeah, this matchup's gonna be fun.
This is a juicy one. I want to go. My obviously I hate Steve. I would definitely never want to see him win, but I think I'm gonna go with Riggs. I just my the glaring hole for me is like I just look down at his tight end and I'm like, dude, George Kittle's definitely gonna score in that game against KC. I just feel like he is at
Probably.
home. And like Fryermuth, like he hasn't been bad, but like I don't know, the changing quarterback. Maybe Russ just delivers more. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into the quarterback change there, but I don't know. The production there I think is going to be the one that tips the scale for me a little bit. Because otherwise, like positional players, like I love where we're at. I mean, unless Josh Allen just goes off and has like a 40 pointer, that will really tip the scale. Um, Everything else looks
Yeah.
like pretty even on paper. I don't know.
Yeah, I think so too. I I'm gonna take Steve also. I love Jaden Reed against Houston. I don't know if he's gonna see a lot of Stingley on the outside. If I assuming Stingley's playing, I haven't heard anything that he's like having an injury or something. I just didn't want to talk and make my point as if he was totally
Sure, I hear
playing without totally noting. But I assume that because Stingley mostly obviously plays outside, and Reed
you.
kind of moves all over. So I think this could be a massive Jaden Reed game. I think this could be a Jahmyr Gibbs game more so than a David Montgomery game this week against Minnesota.
Definitely.
They blitz at I think the highest rate in the league, and I know Gibbs, can get your dump off and take it to the house. Kyron Williams though can actually destroy
Yes.
this week for Steve against Vegas. And when they get up, they still run Kyron. And I think that game is going to be a total blowout. I don't know. I want to look at the line on that actually. The Rams, okay, yeah, they're -7. Yeah, that makes sense. Um,
I love Dobbins too. Like Monday
yeah,
night
me
at
too. Yeah, me
Arizona, like
too.
his
Yeah,
running backs got really good matchups.
yeah, me too. Yeah, I'm gonna go. I think this is gonna be a higher scoring game, like similar to like that 140, 120 that you had against Phil. I
Yep.
still think Aaron's gonna put up points.
Hmm.
But I kind of like a lot of the matchups that Steve has and how his team kind of shapes up. But yeah, I think this will be a floor game for Garrett Wilson too against Pittsburgh. I know
I
Garrett will
think so.
probably be in the slot a little bit more, so he probably won't see Joey Porter, but um I think like a 6 for 75, maybe a touchdown or maybe not, but we'll see. I mean, that offense is super concentrated, and I don't know if this is going to be a huge chase game, but could be.
Yeah.
We'll see. I mean, it could go either way. Like, it wouldn't surprise me at all if Aaron comes out and puts up like 135.
I think that to your point, there's gonna be points on both sides, like everywhere. No matter who's getting them, someone's gonna be putting up points. So yeah, like I think Steve has too many good matchups to like kind of look past in the sense of like who you're picking here. So I like Riggs as well. This
Yeah.
one is literally dead even. That's rare.
Yeah, wow. Wild. Wild.
114.20 to 114.20. Um, this is
It's
interesting.
bananas.
Tiburon goes. I kind of forgot about this. Goes and gets his
He's
old friend
starting
Aaron Rodgers.
Rogers. Wow.
Dax on bye, I think too.
Wow.
So he has
Yeah,
no.
yeah, it makes sense.
He had to play
Okay.
somebody, I guess. But um, God, Phil, what is this? Your fourth starting quarterback? He's got Herbert this week. Jeez. I mean, I guess he had to. Fields is not going to be
Benched.
starting. Yeah. Good
Herbert
Lord.
projected for 19. He hasn't had 19 even close all season.
Yeah, he
matchup, I guess.
sniffed 16 last week. Um, Good Lord, man, where did he just fell off? I mean, they're a run heavy team, obviously too, but
Yeah.
just in terms of just they have no outside weapons either. But yeah, it's I remember I think he was drafted or kept 1 year in like the second or third. Um, wow, crazy.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
wonder who drafted Justin Herbert in the third round.
that's great. That's very true
Yeah.
though.
I'm gonna take
Um,
Phil. Let's go, Phil. Let's go.
wow,
Yeah, I'm
son
gonna take Phil. I think and reason being, I think Herbert could actually throw for like 2, 3 touchdowns. I think McLaurin can get a long touchdown. I think this could be a big Bijan week. And potentially this is a Kyle Pitts week. I think I like the Cincinnati play on defense. And, if Aaron Jones is right, I mean, I think he can like there's going to be points. So I know he's and they're going to play Aaron Jones. Like I don't know, I don't think it'll
yeah.
be something if like he's healthy, they're going to work in, it's going to be like a split with Ty Chandler or anything. I'm pretty sure they're going to lean on Aaron Jones as much as they can. And I know Andrews had that big game last week. I don't know if that's super sticky. Saquon, the revenge game, I think he can get there.
I like that one. Yeah,
I actually I like the Addison play.
that's an interesting one. Yeah, I'm just
I
looking at
like
that.
the yeah, I like the Addison play. I just I don't know if Rodgers gets there. Uh but I mean Rodgers is actually outside of the Denver game when they couldn't score. And he threw 3 picks against Minnesota. 2 of those were early. But
Hmm.
he's actually looked overall pretty solid this year. So yeah, I'm the only hesitance I have is that Buffalo against Tennessee and Mason Rudolph in
Yeah,
Buffalo. I think they could just I
good
think that
25
game,
spot there.
yeah, I think that could be like a 34-6, 34-10 game.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, fuck it. Let's go with Phil.
I like that. I'll split the difference because I mean it's really honestly I think a roll of the dice, but you kind of pointed out some of them. Really love the Buffalo D play. Um,
Yeah.
he's got a lot of guys going in that Tampa Buffalo or Tampa Baltimore game. I'll tell you that on Monday
Yeah.
night. So a lot of points to be had, I should say, are waiting for him to kind of finish there. So Phil's gonna have to sweat it. Basically all the way up until late Monday night. So we'll see what happens there. You mentioned it, Barkley revenge game. Gotta expect him to get into the end zone. I would think at least
Yeah.
once. Addison's an interesting play. I mean, definitely. I do think Detroit on the back end, secondary wise, is not good. They've been giving up a lot of stuff, a lot of points, and like you said, really
Yeah.
no pressure necessarily that's going to get to Darnold as much with Hutchinson being out. So that's an interesting one. I guess he's just hoping for a shootout there. I mean, he's sitting Ayuk, which Ayuk hasn't been great. We mentioned that. But he's going to play the kind of the young bucks and really not the number ones even, and Addison and Williams in that Detroit Minnesota game. So interesting play. Not a bad play at all, but I like some of the guys going down this list, and then yeah, Aaron Rodgers, I don't know. I mean, I would say that that's pretty much the roll of the dice. I don't think if anything, he'll score as many points as Herbert. So
Right.
he'll get you to 20 most likely, and then hey, maybe he throws 3 touchdowns and him and Adams just go off. Who knows? But
Yeah.
I'm gonna go with Ryan. I'm gonna split it up. We only had 2 differences. You picked me, and I picked against myself.
Okay.
And then this one. So we'll see what happens. But yeah,
Let's
to your
go.
point though, I mean, this is it, man. We're getting after this. We'll be halfway through. I
Yep.
think there'll be certainly some leveling out. I mean, a couple of these top teams, like you mentioned, I mean, the 1 through 4s play each other. So, we're going to certainly see some losses. I mean, Anthony and Chip Blizzard, someone's going to be 1-6. Yeah,
And it's
there's going to be a
over.
lot.
And it's over.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that are going to come out of this week. I feel like in terms of just, kind of a little shuffling, a little shaking out a little bit. Some dead weight, some teams at the bottom, and then seeing really who's kind of the top, kind of in the top spot, who's going to continue putting up some points in that 1 through 4 matchups. So yeah, it'll be interesting.
It is going to be interesting. It's interesting to see the top four or the top group of teams. And then there's always that team that has a really solid roster that, you can see kind of getting hot and things start clicking and then they get on a run. I mean, look what happened with Ryan's team last year. I know when we were recording our pod last year, I was saying I loved Ryan's roster. And then it just started clicking. So it'll be interesting to see, what teams can kind of figure it out and start to put together, stack a few wins and, go on some runs. So we'll see.
Yeah. Well, good luck to everyone. I'm going to try to get this posted, I think, right after this. If everything goes smoothly with the upload and everyone can wake up, hopefully, to the London game and listen to this because I don't think there'll be much watching of the New England Jacksonville game bright and early
Yeesh.
tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
Tough luck for the
Yeesh.
London fans.
Yeah,
But yeah,
Jacksonville. They're 5.5 point favorites. Are they deserving of that?
5.5. Wow. I didn't look at any lines yet. So I don't like any. I wouldn't take that game. Scares me. I wouldn't take anything in that game. Especially just not
I'm,
knowing like who's playing.
I might bet New England.
Cover. Get the 5.5.
Yeah, yeah,
It's not a bad play. We should do. We
yeah,
should do that. We should incorporate that.
yeah. We should.
Just
It'll
your
be fun.
game of the week. Next week we'll do that. You
All
pick.
right,
You we look at the lines and you just pick one game. Your game of the week.
it'll be my train. Take it to the bank,
Yeah, I
and
love that.
I'll actually put money on it.
Yeah,
I'll like legitimately put money on it on like
yeah.
FanDuel or
I
something.
mean, I'll do that. Yeah, I actually really like that. I'll throw this out there too. There's actually two things that I want to throw out. One, right before we wrap here, Anthony actually had a good suggestion. We'll table it until next year. Um, but having waivers go through maybe on Thursday morning, so you have like all the questionable practice news would be out, and then you would still get the
Mm,
players obviously for Thursday night. Good, really good
hmm.
suggestion. I kind of like that because it does suck Tuesday after a Monday night game. Like you don't really know anything, so
Sure.
um, I like that take. And then the other thing I'm stealing from the group of guys that I have the Westchester League with. One of them had like their buddies all throw in like I don't know. I don't know who if they all bet it or just one guy puts this in, but I think this is pretty fun. They throw in like kind of like a pick of the week that we're talking about, but they pick like I don't know, maybe like 6 games. So it's a 6 leg like parlay. So it's
Hmm.
pretty unlikely you're going to hit, but the odds are so high that if you do hit, you win some dough.
Yeah, yeah.
I feel like that would be kind of fun. Like, I mean, you'd have to have 12 guys
That would be
agreeing
fun.
on it, but yeah,
Yeah.
I think it'd be fun. I feel like everybody mostly is probably betting on NFL. So
Yeah, yeah.
why not win
I'm
together?
Yeah, I'll give you two favorites that you can take
Yeah,
to
here
the
we go.
bank that are going to cover. The Rams -7, they're going to crush Vegas. And
Love this.
especially with Cooper Cup back. I mean, minus
Like,
seven, the Rams at home,
love that.
they're off a bye. And then Commanders -8.5 hosting
Oh,
Carolina. I
it's a
really
good
like
line.
that. Really, it is a really big line. And then my
I still like that
underdog of the week that will cover. We're gonna go with the Patriots plus
take.
five and a
Yeah,
half
nice
in
take of it
in
tomorrow morning.
in Jacksonville in London.
Jacksonville's home away from home.
Book it. Drake May shows up, and wouldn't surprise me if they just outright win.
That's new material for the pod and myself to start tracking. Is your take it to the banks. So I love
Hell
that.
yeah, let's do
All right,
it.
brother. Well, I appreciate that little tidbit. That's nice. That's nice little action there. All right. So who wants to follow him? We'll see. Appreciate you jumping on. I know this was a late one on Saturday
Hell
night,
yeah,
but always fun.
all good. Hell yeah, man. Yeah, let's go. I'm pumped. Week 7. Let's go. It's here. It's here, man. We're midway through.
Some teams need to make some moves. All right.
That's it.
Well, good luck. Talk to you tomorrow.
Yeah. See you, buddy.
See you, dude.